class, in this video we will be looking at the formula chart that will be used for Chapter 7 and 8. This chart will accompany you through your major quizzes, your homework, and even the final exam. So it's important that you know how to navigate this chart. So first off, you can find this chart either in the back of your notes, if you have the printed version, or there is a digital copy that you can find by clicking the PowerPoint Notes tab in my Stat Lab on that left-hand menu. Alright, so first of all, I want you to notice that this formula chart will have 2 pages. The first page will be dedicated to Chapter 7. The second page will be dedicated to Chapter 8. You can see in the first row of each table here, you'll see the chapters. Since you have probably clicked on this video before starting Chapter 7, let's go ahead and start there. I'm going to look first at the first leftmost column entitled Parameter. As you go down the parameter column, you'll be going in the same order as your notes. In other words, the first entry you'll see here is titled P, and that is for proportion. And we go over proportions in 7.1. And then the next 2 entries there in that first column on the left are both mu, which is for a population mean, and we'll be going over population means in 7.2. Alright. So then in the next column over, we call that the distribution column, and we have here the different distributions that you'll need in order to answer questions about either a proportion or a mean. So we'll be using the normal distribution, or the Z, or the student T distribution, which we haven't introduced you to yet. We'll get into that a little bit in 7.2. And then the third column over is called requirements. This column is just going to tell you briefly how to know which distribution you're going to use, either Z or T. This will be mainly helpful in 7.2, where you'll have to decide between Z and T. We will just be using Z in 7.1. Alright, so now the next column over from that, the fourth column is called point estimate, and here you'll see your first set of formulas. So for a proportion, you'll find that we have 3 different ways to find your point estimate for a proportion. Sometimes in a problem we have seen with the proportion that we're given an x and an n, and in that case we need to divide x by n to get our proportion. Sometimes you'll be given a percentage. You'll just convert that percent to a decimal to get your proportion. And then finally, you might be given a confidence interval, which you haven't seen just yet, and you'll have to use that confidence interval to obtain your point estimate. Right? For section 7.2, your point estimate is always going to be given to you as the sample mean. But again, you'll get to that. All right, now the next column after that, the 5th column, is called the confidence interval column, and here again we have some formulas for the confidence interval, but what I really want to draw your attention to are 1 prompt Z int, Z interval, and T interval, which all show up as entries under that column. These are referring to the calculator functions that you need for each section. Okay, so you'll be introduced and shown how to use those calculator functions, but you do also have by hand formulas that you can use as well. Okay? The next 2 columns after that are the margin of error and sample size, and they pretty much just have, again, some by hand formulas that'll help you find the margin of error and the sample size. So now let's talk about the rows real quick. So say I'm in 7.1 and I'm asked to compute the margin of error for a confidence interval. So, since I'm in 7.1, I know that I'm going to be estimating a proportion. So I go to P in that leftmost column, and then I'm going to look to the right, all right, until I find the margin of error column, and I follow the instructions and the formulas there. In this case, find the confidence interval, and then find E equals upper minus lower over 2. Okay? Now, you'll notice that we have a second table in its own little column off to the side on the very right of your formula chart here. This is showing you how to find different z-scores. So you'll notice that if you look at the sample size column, all of these formulas have some version of z alpha over 2 included. So this rightmost column off to itself, titled Critical Value Z-Score, this is going to help you find those z-scores. And again, you're going to go over that in the notes, so I'm not going to harp on it too much in this video, but that is how you will find those z-scores. The takeaway is you're either going to use your calculator, inverse norm, or you will have here 3 very common critical values that you will use, and you can just utilize them there. Okay, so that is the Chapter 7 formula chart. Let me erase this real quick. All right, so now the Chapter 8 formula chart. On the left hand side of your chart, we have a little table that tells you the different hypothesis testing that you will use. These refer to, again, the one-prop z-test, the z-test, and the t-test. These all refer to calculator functions that you'll be introduced to. All right, and then you have another chart here to the right of that where you will be putting together your conclusions for your hypothesis testing. But you'll be shown in further videos how to utilize that table, so I'm not going to go over it too much here. All right, well, thank you for popping into this video, and I hope that helped you learn how to utilize this formula chart.